Welcome to the Scoop with Dukes. I'm your host, Philip Dukes, aka Dukes the Scoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes the Scoop. And if you're watching on the at Dukes the Scoop YouTube page, please hit the like and subscribe button and turn your notifications on. Right now, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. You never know when I'm gonna drop. So listen. All right. Oh, and before I get to that, you may be watching this on the pregame network. And if you are, thank you. And be sure to like and subscribe. Shout out to Uncle Neely. All right, Colorado. Well, in Deion Sanders Jr. well-off media post earlier, he made a big announcement. New strength and conditioning coach, head of strength and conditioning at Colorado Boulder for the Buffs is Andreu Swasey. And who is Andreu Swasey? I know everybody's thinking that. What happened to Coach Mo? Before we get into Coach Mo, I'm gonna let you know I'm not getting into that. I don't have enough clear information. I've seen different conflicting reports. I just want to make sure I have the right information before I put anything out. So shout out to Coach Mo. I am hearing that he will still be remaining on staff, but until I can really nail down what his title will be, then I'm gonna stay away from that. But right now, we're going to talk about Coach Swasey. And if you just Google or search, don't even Google it. Just go search his name, Andreu Swasey, on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. There has been an outpouring of love for decades. I mean, literally, you can see tweets all the way back to like 2010. That's almost 15 years worth of tweets of people just saying how much they respect him, how much they owe him, how much they love him, how much of a legend he is. And so I really want to dive into who he is, because when you see the level of people that are just singing his praises, I'm like, man, this was a home run hire. Why hasn't anybody else how did Colorado even get this guy? But it's a great thing for Colorado because we're talking about a guy who has over 16 years experience at the University of Miami during its what some people consider to be the golden age. You got some people who think the 80s in Miami was the golden age, and then you got some that think about all of the NFL prospects that came out of Miami between like 98 and 2000 in the 2000s and the 2000 teens. So throughout his tenure, he had over 35 first round picks and 100 plus NFL draft picks during his tenure. And that's not to count the undrafted free agents or anything, like, because there's plenty of those guys too. So when you talk about somebody who has the experience and knows what it takes to get high level guys to perform at the highest level, this is your guy. I look no further than Uncle Luther Campbell, a Miami staple. When I saw him say, "Yeah, that's a great hire," I knew it, and he had been campaigning for him to come back to the University of Miami already. But and a lot of people measure hires by what the media says, and some people say, but I'm looking at what the streets saying. To be honest, like not just the streets, but the players. Like, and I do use the word streets, loosely because this ain't the streets. But I look at what former players are saying and what they're going on record publicly, and you look at the public outcry, and this is a home run hire according to some people that I really respect. Philip Buchanan, who was a big time cornerback, Frank Gore. You just look at the names on this roster of people who have publicly, Alvin Kamara, who didn't even play at the University of Miami, but went at the urging of Thaddeus Brown, who has a wonderful podcast. You got to check this out, The Life and Times of Tub City, Tubbcity. Thaddeus Brown Jr., you got to check that out. And make sure you go follow him and make sure you check out his podcast, because he has the most in-depth interview with Coach Swasey of anybody. And when I say that, some of this information I got from there. I sat through it. It was a really, really good listen. So make sure you go check that out. I want to make sure I give my man his credit. Shout out to Tub City. But yeah, Alvin Kamara is someone where, he sung his praises in public. So let's dive into the man and what I've learned about him so far. So he's from Carroll City, bottom of the map, Miami, Carroll City, coached by the legendary Walt Frazier, who was a lineman at Bethune-Cookman and a legendary coach in the state of Florida at Carroll City. His name rings bells. There are parks named after him. So he's been coached by the best as somebody who's revered by that city in a way that we haven't seen a lot of times. A very rare way, the way that Coach Walt Frazier is revered. That's who pretty much reared him and raised him on the ball field. He grew up a ball player. He said it kept him out of trouble, which I understand. A two-parent household, grew up the middle child out of 7, 4 brothers, 2 sisters. And he was quoted as saying that he always wanted to take something from his older siblings in order to give it to his younger siblings as an example. So he wanted to know how to be a leader and a follower, which I think is important at times because, like, even in his position right now, he'll be following the leader, Coach Prime, but he'll be leading young men. So it's important to know how to do both jobs. So I really like that. He goes on record saying never smoked weed. Like, I like hearing guys who've been disciplined like that because they can teach discipline, right? Okay. So most recently we talked about his stint at Miami. In his personal life, has two boys. One of them, Drew, played football at the University of Miami, and then he has a younger son who's currently playing college baseball right now. And so over the years, I think in the past 2 years, he coached at Columbus in Miami where his son was playing. So he was able to spend some time with his son during the senior year, where he was also able to coach a ton of dozens of NFL athletes. So he's been making the most of his time, and so I felt like he was ready to get back in the game, and the situation worked out for everybody. So what I thought was really interesting about him was the amount of elite talent that he had. So there's an article in The Athletic from 2022 after Bruce Feldman's Freaks list that comes out every year where he talks about the most freakishly athletic college football players in the country. And The Athletic ran an article where Coach Swasey has had so many freakish athletes that he was able to put his own list together. So when you talk about guys, so he was asked who had the fastest guy he ever had. Sam Shields, and some of you may remember Sam Shields from Miami. He could fly. Was a 4.2 guy, but he ran. But Coach Swasey said he timed him at 4.16, but said he never wanted to put that time out because nobody would believe it. He didn't think anybody would believe it. That's how fast he was moving. But he said he actually had Swasey had Shields, Sam Shields, cornerback, pro cornerback at 4.16. But just some of the names that he listed as some of the fastest players: uh, Philip Dorsett, wide receiver; Santana Moss, Clinton Portis, even at his size, he said they all ran 4.2. DeMarcus Van Dyke ran 4.27 at the combine. That's another guy. So when you talk about just having speed and knowing what speed looks like, knowing true speed, he knows it. Like, you don't get any faster. I mean, that's a real live, could be an Olympic relay team. I mean, 4.2 is all over the place. One of the most freakish guys that he was proud of was Vince Wilfork, who ran a 4.940 at 321 pounds. And we all know the type of career that Vince Wilfork has. So that's another freakish athlete that he was able to mold in his system. One of the best stories that I heard about with Coach Swasey would be that Duke Johnson, a running back who played had a really good career in the NFL, very versatile. Didn't know if he could have played slot receiver, and he played running back primarily, but he was so good catching the ball and so elusive, he could have been a slot receiver. He said Duke Johnson came to Miami and hated lifting weights. He was a natural athlete, weighed about 170 pounds. He was the type of kid that just had it, athleticism in spades, the type of kid who could run off 30 backflips in a row. And he said when he got him, he was only 170, but he talked to him, and he gave him tough love. And by the end, he got him up to 200 pounds, running a 4.340. And he was drafted in the NFL draft, but I don't think he would have been able to be drafted at that 170 pounds. So being able to understand needs and develop guys is another thing that you're going to see a consistent theme with Coach Swasey. Another guy that he talked about that I thought was a very interesting story was Jonathan Vilma, When we think about linebacker Jonathan Vilma, who had a really good Pro Bowl career in the NFL, you think about speed, think about athleticism. We see him on Sundays calling the games on Fox, but you would never think that he came to Miami running a 4.97 40 at 197 pounds. Small and slow, according to Coach Swasey. He was a huge project. He got him to focus on size and power, focus on his craft, take every rep seriously, act like there's no tomorrow, not only on the field, but in the weight room. And at his pro day, now we're talking about a guy who was 197 pounds running a 4.97. Nothing about that says explosive. He was under 200 pounds. We're talking about a big time linebacker at the time. Now, he had high school production, he did. But when you look at what he entered at and what he left, running a 4.57 40 with a 36-inch vertical, that screams explosion. And Coach Swasey really said that he really took it seriously, and that's a kid that he got through to. What's important about all these names and how they correlate to Colorado? Got one more for you. Jimmy Graham. We all remember Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham was just playing not even that long ago. Jimmy Graham, tight end, all-pro tight end, all-world tight end, former basketball player. Well, you know who got his hands on him first when he came out of basketball into football? Coach Swasey was the first guy who was able to mold Jimmy Graham in a football athleticism bill to get him where he needed to be as far as from a football training perspective. Said he got Jimmy at 250 pounds, got him up to 265, 270, running a 4.5. Got to the NFL. The rest is history. So he was a basketball player, and Coach Swasey was the first person who was able to develop him on the field as far as his body for the rigors of football coming out the basketball field. I think that's huge. So, like I said, all of these names that I'm talking about, how does that work for Colorado? Well, when you're new, and I say this and everything, people always want proof of concept. Well, who you know? What have you done? Okay. So you've got these freshmen and you've got these guys who've been in Colorado doing it a different way. And now you've got this legendary coach where you got all these players who swear by him. And Alvin Kamara, how you say his name? Alvin, AK 41. I think I'm gonna go with Kamara. I like Alvin Kamara swears by him. You can go, you can search it. Search Alvin Kamara and Swayze. You can look on Twitter. Gucci CU has it posted. Like, shout out to Gucci. You can see clearly that these guys hold this guy in very high reverence. So it's important because now this guy's saying, look, I've been around the best of the best. Just like your coaches, your position coaches, just like your head coach, I've been around the best as well. If there was a Hall of Fame for strength and conditioning coaches based on reputation, I'd have a gold jacket as well. And you don't have to go far. You can pick up your phone and search his name. You're going to find it. And I think that's important, especially when, you have a changing of the guard in Colorado with Shiloh, Shador, and Travis being gone, and guys getting into and helping change that culture. You heard Coach Prime say on Well Off, shout out to Bucky, it's the first time he gets to coach without having to be a father. Well, you need the right people in place that can help set the culture even further, help further the culture. You just had some really, really good leadership that just made his way to the NFL, not even to mention Shepard, LeJounte, Jimmy Horn, the D linemen who were just at the Hula Bowl. I mean, you lost a lot of leadership. So being able to bring in a guy who's been known as a disciplinarian who knows when to dial it back, I love that. He's been described as a disciplinarian who knows when to dial it back. I saw a player mention how Coach Swasey came in really, really fiery and strict, and now and they say the quickest way to get punished with him is to skip a rep. You hide your reps, he's on your tail. You're not gonna cheat him. But for someone who was able to develop relationships with his players even after being a disciplinarian, I think that speaks volumes about who he is. So I've given you a lot of information. I wanted to break it down of this hire. I think it's a home run hire. And I think it also just speaks to Coach Prime as far as not needing to take the traditional route every time, being able to use the eye test, being able to make the phone call, being able to understand what something really means outside of what other people think. To make this hire at this time for a guy who you didn't hire him from another school. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, he came from Miami. He came from Miami years ago. This isn't a direct hire from the University of Miami. A lot of the kids on the team that aren't from there don't know him unless kids from the team have taken him to him. Now, the guys that I know at Miami who have heard of him, I mean, he has legendary status. So I think this is a huge hire. Shout out to Coach Prime for making it. Shout out to Ray Forsett, Chief of Staff, for his influence in the decision. And I just think that this is one of those program changing hires. When you can when you have players that can aspire to be the early 2000s Miami in 2025 in Colorado and wanting to know, how do these guys get there? How did you have so many first round picks? Can we be that? And you add that to the type of players that you're recruiting. One of my favorite terms is a powder keg, and I think that's what you're building in Colorado. All right, man, it's my time, man. Hey, check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes the Scoop. If you're watching this on the pregame network, come over to Dukes the Scoop. Just search that in your YouTube and subscribe and follow. If you're watching this on my channel at Dukes the Scoop, go over to the pregame network, THEE pregame network with Uncle Neely, and make sure you like and subscribe there. And while you're at it, go to Big Dog Chico's channel as well, and Well Off Forever, Well Off Media. Make sure you go there too. All right, man. Appreciate y'all. See you next time.